Joining us with market analysis is Mark Schultz. We're going to talk about the livestock market. It's kind of a tug of war here because we've had good demand for beef and pork, but we also have these big supplies, especially on the pork side.
Yeah, the pork is the one that's getting hurt the hardest, Michelle. And not only that, it's also getting hurt with the tariffs that are affecting that. So we got the increased supply coming in. It looks like that's not going away anytime soon. So pork production is still going to stay strong all the way to February, April. I don't see anything yet on any type of liquidation taking place in this country. Maybe we start seeing a little bit more globally, just simply because grain prices globally have started to rise, and with drier conditions elsewhere around the world, we might start seeing something that might give the hog market maybe a little boost to the longer term. Short term, though, it's still going to be a function of whether we start seeing increase in demand, which I am starting to see, picking up with prices dropping as much as it is. And in fact, the last week you saw Mexico as one of the biggest buyers of pork, taking nearly half of all the pork that we had last week. So I thought that was at least an encouraging sign. We'll see if we got more follow-up here in the weeks ahead, and if we do, then that would be at least a little bit more encouraging sign.
So we've had more tariffs that have gone into effect with China, but really the NAFTA deal is the big thing. If we got a NAFTA deal by the end of the month, could we see a big rebound in pork prices? Yeah,
there's two things I think you want to be watching here. First, additional tariffs on with China, I don't think is going to make that much impact anymore as far as pork is concerned, or at this juncture. I think what can become is not only do I think you have to have something done with NAFTA coming up here pretty quick, and then you got to start seeing where this demand starts picking up. I think regardless, you got to start seeing one of these trade negotiations get concluded and start moving on, so that there's some momentum starts to build in here. And if we can do that, then I think it'd be a good sign. Second, watch for anything that if the Trump administration starts coming in to buy pork off of the market, put it into cold storage or something like that for the school lunch programs, whatever else that it might do, or for donations to other countries. That would be the other outside possibility. You'd like to see something like that come in sooner rather than later.
That'll probably come after Labor Day, I think, was the timing.
Yeah, I think Labor Day has still been kind of the key that they've mentioned here as a date that they're going to start seeing something happen. But I think you got to start building some momentum at that time. Despite
the trade and tariff situation, we have had good pork exports and even better beef exports.
The pork has started to pick up. The first 3 to 4 or 5 weeks after they announced that there was going to be some tariffs, that got into trouble. That's started to pick up now that prices have dropped dramatically. In beef, I see it's still been good, but I would say it's actually plateaued a little bit here. That's the other thing we want to watch is if beef starts getting a little bit too high versus pork, you might start seeing a slight shift back out of the demand. But I still think in beef, my biggest thing is as long as the economies continue to do well, and they are at this juncture, and we don't see anything fall out of that, then I think the beef demand is going to stay relatively good.
Let's talk about fourth quarter projections for cattle. What are you looking at for prices? We've been in this very narrow trading range.
We have. We've been in a narrow range. We have been moving up, so we're at some of the better prices we've seen futures-wise dating back to March and February-March time period. So it at least is looking a little bit better. Seasonally time frame, you still got this August to September, then you start to move a little bit more to the upside. I think one of the keys that I would look at too is we saw the cattle weights start to go below a year ago, only by 3 to 4 pounds, but you'd like to see that trend continue. And I think there too, a lot of it's going to hinge on whether grain prices move higher. They are moving higher globally. I want to see if they start moving higher in the nationally. And if they do, then I think you could probably keep the weights in the cattle a little bit less. Then I could see the cattle futures maybe in cash cattle sitting in this staying in this probably this 114 on up to maybe 118. I don't think you're going to see a big move to the upside, but I think you slowly but surely see it just do what it's been doing for the last 2 to 3 months.
What about fourth quarter projections for hogs when we're looking at these big numbers?
Well, that's the scary one. The big numbers are there. I think a lot of it may already be getting factored in. There's some pretty wide spreads now on this hog market with the cash still, and the cash has got to find a bottom first. That's the key. It was down another $3 yesterday. I think you're going to have to stay. We're getting down to where I think there's some pretty major support on a cash chart in here of $2 to $3 more to the downside. Then I think you should find some pretty good support, and then we'll see if this thing goes. If we get something to turn on this NAFTA, then I think the hog market could start seeing maybe where the worst is August, October, and then by the time December rolls around, I wouldn't be surprised if we're back to the upper 50s, maybe low 60s for December hogs.
Thanks so much, Mark Schultz.